Hello, everybody. Welcome to our session. As we get started, we just want to ask you all a couple of questions to see who's in the room and what your experience has been. So, can I get a hand clap or a hand raise, whatever is most accessible to you, if you have ever had to ignore your bodily functions at work? So, not being able to go to the bathroom when you need to, not being able to eat when you're hungry, etc. Just give me a hands up or a clap. All right. What about, have you ever been guilted into not taking off from work? If you're sick or if you have, other obligations, have you ever been guilted into not taking off? Same thing, either a hand clap or a hand raise. Okay. And finally, have you had to go more than 4 hours without talking to anyone in your age group? Okay, I'm going to kick it off to Rachel.
Thanks, Vanity. And some of the things, if you are in schools, that might have been really applicable. And I'm going to list through some experiences that maybe if you work in nonprofits and sometimes maybe in schools that might be relevant to you. So raise your hand if you have responded to an email or Slack late in the evening or over the weekend or when you were supposed to be off. Raise your hand if you schedule the back-to-back meetings on your calendar without any break or any time for lunch. And finally, raise your hand if you've jumped into meetings without asking how your team or your colleagues are doing. I know for me, I've raised my hands at some points during our exercise. And so I want you just to take a moment just to connect with your body. When you were hearing Vanity and I list off some of these examples or experiences, how did your body feel? Were you experiencing any tense, anything uncomfortable? Were your shoulders starting to really crunch up? Any sweaty palms? What we just listed off were some dehumanizing practices. And what is most important when we think about our work is how does these practices that are so normal impact our body? And what we will talk about in our session is how we are super disconnected from our body because of sense of urgency. And so how do we really reconnect with our body, understand how these practices are showing up, and really begin to center humanity? And one of the ways that we can do that is just doing a breathing exercise. And so I'm going to invite us to do a quick breathing exercise for us to really move in from doing to being. So I want you just to feel grounded if your feet are on the ground. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Take a deep breath in. Hold. Another deep breath in. Finally, do a collective exhale. Deep breath in. Hold and great. I'm going to pass it over to Vanny, who's going to introduce a little bit about us and more about our session.
Thanks, Rachel. So Rachel and I have both been educators. We've been classroom teachers, and we have worked with schools our whole lives, whether that's through coaching, being administrators, or working alongside schools as consultants. We are really grounded in creating spaces where people can be their most authentic selves without questions or without doubts. And that really means to recenter our individual and collective humanity in the spaces that we're in.
Thanks, Vanny. And one of the things that I would like to add, and Vanny and I are both executive coaches, is that we really care about supporting people and being able to exist in their authentic selves, right? We know that the system exists, but people need individual support. And one of the things that is really important to me is that I recently became a healing-centered coach, so professional coach, and just learned about the ways in which our body and our body intuition really communicates how we feel. We often ignore that, and we definitely ignore that in education And so we're really on a mission of centering that again. And so our session, Interrupting Dehumanizing Practices in Education, is really about exploring the ways that the educational system is inherently dehumanizing, and really how to interrupt the normalcy of these practices like we just walked through in the beginning of our pitch. And we want to be able to support you all and other people and the education world in creating more human-centered practices. If we as the adults can create more human-centered practices, then kids and our students can experience a more human-centered learning environment, right? So we are the model as adults, whether or not we work directly in schools or we work in nonprofits, for what students experience. And so we have to be the ones that start first, right? And so we know that the examples of scheduling back-to-back lunches, back-to-back meetings with no lunch, is common in a lot of industries, but it is especially common in education, because we have this little thing called guilt, where people say, well, the kids really need us, or if we don't do it, then the kids aren't going to be able to learn. And so we use our students as a way to kind of dehumanize ourselves or normalize the dehumanization practices, because if we don't, then we're not considered committed, and we're considered selfish. And so we deeply believe, Vanity and I, that there is a way we can both deeply care about our students and we can deeply care about ourselves in a way that is not dehumanizing and really takes us away out of our bodies, takes us away from who we are and what we care about, doesn't strip us of our emotions, allows us to really center our needs, right? And so that is a little bit about our session in terms of why we think this is important, and particularly in education.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Rachel. The only other thing I'll add is, our children are a mirror of us, and they see what we're doing, they see how we engage. And, just a couple of years ago, the World Health Organization said that we should start screening children for anxiety at age 8. And so, if you think that the dehumanization that we're going through as educators isn't impacting our children, it absolutely is. And so that is why we think it is critically important to really interrupt that system. And so through inquiry and leveraging our personal experiences, we will explore what the dehumanizing practices are, and most importantly, how we can interrupt them and how we can begin to recenter our humanity.
And really the highlights of the experience will be, we're going to practice what we preach, right? So if we're saying we want to be recentering humanity in our work in the education field, in the session, we're going to model practices that we're talking about. So we're going to be really thinking about and reconnecting with our body, doing breathing exercises, and other pieces around inquiry. So it's going to be really interactive, a great session for people who just want to more deeply interrogate their practices as educators, both if you're in a school-based role or if you're in a nonprofit. And again, we are really excited. And I'm sure you're probably sitting and thinking about, okay, Rachel and Vanity, what do I do if I schedule back-to-back meetings, or if I am the person that is not taking breaks so that I can eat, or etc.? Well, join our session and we will let you know. All right,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you all so much.